Okay, councillors, we'll get underway. I'll begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land and pay my respects to their elders, both past and present. Before I go on, can I just ask everyone to give me a bit of an indication about whether they can hear me okay? Excellent. Okay, that's very good. We have an apology tonight from Councillor York. Are there any other apologies? There being no other apologies, I'll move that that be accepted. Seconded by Councillor Iskander. All those in favour, please raise your hands. I believe that's unanimous. Can anyone indicate if they didn't vote for the resolution? Okay, we'll move on. The notice of webcasting, I'll just let everybody who's watching online know that you are participating in a public event, and all of the comments that we make are in the public domain and can have legal ramifications. Disclosures of interest, councillors. Are there any disclosures of interest tonight? I believe there's no disclosures of interest. I'll ask any councillor who does have one just to let me know directly if I've got that wrong. And I'll ask all councillors to now join me in a moment of quiet contemplation. Thank you, councillors. We'll move on to the confirmation of the minutes of the meetings of the 10th of March and the 7th of April. Are there any clarifications or corrections to those minutes? There's no corrections. Councillor De Cruz will move their adoption, seconded by Councillor Lockie. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried unanimously. We'll move on to the, there are no condolence motions or mayoral minutes. So we'll move on to the motions on notice. The first is a rescission motion from Councillor Stamoulis in relation to the Inner West Council logo. It is my intention to rule this out of order, as it was subject to a resolution of the council which was passed a long time ago and which has been carried out in full. To the degree that there is now a new Inner West Council logo. So quite obviously the matter has been completed. I believe that Councillor Stamoulis would be within his rights to table a motion at council that we undertake a new process to revert to the previous logo, but that's not what this motion before us is. This is a rescission motion, which, as I say, I'm intending to rule is out of order on the basis that the resolution has already been carried out. Now, Councillor Stamoulis, I'll come to you to speak to the motion, but I might ask you directly to address that issue about why this is in order, because otherwise the rest of your remarks might be redundant. Councillor Stamoulis?
Mr. Mayor, can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Oh, good, thank you. Mr. Mayor, I've tried on a couple of occasions to work with the appropriate process to move forward with this notice of motion. On this occasion, I was advised that a rescission motion was needed. Now, I'm more than happy to move in the direction of what you have said, and that is that we revert back to the old logo. More than happy to do that, whatever you think is the most efficient and sound process for moving forward. So, as I said, the advice I received was a rescission motion was the way to achieve this, but let's work constructively and move forward with it.
Okay, well, I'll invite you to table a notice of motion for next Tuesday's meeting in regards to it, identifying a funding source for the new project, and I will commit to you that we'll deal with the matter urgently if you're not able to submit it as a notice of motion. Because the time has closed, so we can deal with that at the next ordinary council meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, so I've moved that is not in order, but Councillor Stamoulis will have his day in court, so to speak. So we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. Just give me one moment, councillors. I'll revert to my mobile phone. The next item on the agenda is item 2, notice of motion, council to consider holding Australia Day event. Councillor Stamoulis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe that the Inner West Council has an opportunity before us here to discuss options to create an Inner West event for Australia Day. Now, I haven't specified a date. I've said to create an event for Australia Day, one that's developed and designed by the Inner West, one that reflects the values of our people, our community, our council, and also as part of that process, we would be working directly with Aboriginal peak groups to develop whatever options they might be. And I'd assume that a number of options will come out of this process. Unfortunately, last year, and in terms of Australia Day 2020, Council sent some very mixed messages. And that is, we resolved last year that we would not have an event for Australia Day 2020, but during the council recess, we funded an event for $30,000. And we encouraged our community to attend that event. In fact, every councillor, I believe, encouraged the community to attend that event. And that event, I believe, is run by the City of Sydney, or that's one of the chief sponsors anyway. Given that we're now looking at recurrent funding for this particular event, the opportunity now arises as to whether Inner West Council would like to run ours. So my notice of motion opens up the opportunity for Inner West Council. We're one of the biggest councils now in Australia, and we have the opportunity ourselves to create a meaningful Australia Day event, a respectful Australia Day ceremony, and one which captures the essence of what our community would want and what our Aboriginal people would want. Additionally, I don't rule out, councillors, the fact that there might be opportunity to fund both events. And that's something, again, that should be presented as one of the options, that we fund, possibly have the option of funding both events. But I'll leave it open to councillors' discussion to see what preferences might be out there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Is there a seconder for the motion? Now, I can't hear Councillor Passis, but I believe that she is wanting to speak.
The motion?
Yes, I can hear you now, Councillor Passis. Do you wish to speak to it?
No, I tried to speak the previous item. Why was Councillor Stamoulis's rescission motion out of order?
Well, a resolution that has been carried out by the council, or even has been initiated by the council. So as soon as it's actioned in any way, in this case, it's been completed, it can't be rescinded.
Our buildings, our trucks, and all it is on a bit of our hard copy paperwork. It's not already actioned.
Well, it is already actioned, but Councillor Stamoulis has agreed to a process whereby his motion will be considered as a notice of motion or an urgency motion next Tuesday.
Okay.
Did you wish to speak, Councillor, to this item?
What, the item on the Eben Festival?
Yes.
Yes, well, I support Councillor Stamoulis on that, because either you celebrate or you don't. We didn't celebrate. We didn't do a thing for our people. We did not ask our residents, and yet we donate money to another municipality where there was a celebration, drinks and a good time had by all. So I can't understand why we didn't do the same type of thing.
Okay, thank you for that. Is there any councillor who wishes to speak
Mayor.
again for the motion? Any councillor who wishes to speak against the motion?
Mayor.
Councillor Drury.
Councillor Hesse as well, but yeah.
Yep. Councillor Drury, then Councillor Hesse.
Thank you, Mayor. And John, I just can't work you out. I don't know where you're going with this. The Yarbin Festival is not run by the City of Sydney. The Yarbin Festival is sponsored by a number of organisations, including the City of Sydney, the Aboriginal Land Council, the National Centre for Indigenous Excellence, Aboriginal Fairs, Destination New South Wales. The Yabun Festival is put together by the Koori Radio Association in conjunction with the Courier Mail. They are the people who organise this festival. That is an uncontrovertible fact. So this nonsense that this is a City of Sydney event is not an argument in favour of your motion. Secondly, I just can't work out, like, are people saying that you're looking too green or Trotskyist? Have you got to move to the right for something, for some reason? What's going on here, John? I don't see the point of this. We had a very good citizenship ceremony on Australia Day, a very respectful and wonderful ceremony, and then a lot of people went down to Yabun and had a good time. I don't think there is a need for us to do anything else in the current climate. I think there are wider discussions going on. We don't determine when Australia Day is. The Commonwealth does. I happen to believe, like many other Australians, that the Commonwealth should change the date. But it is for the Commonwealth to do that. And we sit and wait for the Commonwealth to come to its senses. But this sort of kind of flip-flop move here, try to get some Conservatives or Liberals on board with a motion like this is absolutely ridiculous. I urge everyone to support this crazy motion.
Okay, Councillor Hesse.
Thanks, Mayor, and I won't. I'm sure that Councillor Drew wants people to oppose the motion, not support it, but I won't go on too long. One of the first motion I think I had before this council was asking our Aboriginal Advisory Committee their view of council's engagement with January 26th, and I recall their view was, one, they didn't really want to be asked, but two, they'd rather we didn't. And that, of course, is not an uncontroversial view amongst Aboriginal peoples across this country. I think I also mentioned previously that having attended a number of Australia Day events in a number of capacities over the last decade or two in Enmore Park, my observation was that indeed the connection with the community was weakening around that event. That is that while of course some people do support it on that day, many in the Inner West do not, or at least are agnostic about it. And of course, three, that Yabun is supported by the Aboriginal community, among whom there are many in our own community here in the Inner West, and that it is not a long way out of the boundaries of the Inner West, and it is an easy to get to place. I've attended it for many years and it is a very fine event. So I think, and I should say, and I would support what Councillor Jury said earlier, of course we do have our citizenship ceremony on the night before the day, whatever the day it is, and we recognise new citizens on that day, which is an important event, and we encourage our citizens to attend Yabun. I think I got to say I haven't had any adverse response to council's actions, so I think we really are on the right track here, and I would encourage all councillors to oppose this motion, and that we simply move on and endorse Councillor Jury's call on the way out that indeed, that as a nation, our federal government takes a different view of our National Day. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hesse. Are there any other councillors who wish to speak?
Chair, can I just say something?
Councillor Macri.
Chair, I didn't support the scrapping of the events in the first place, and where there are definitely a lot of people that think it shouldn't happen, but there are equally, and I think more people that think that it needs to be marked as a day in a respectful way to both the Aboriginal people and the residents. I was avalanched by people that were horrified by the lack of consultation with the community on this change of policy. So I didn't support it when it came to council the last time, and no, I will be supporting this motion to go back and look at it again for it to come back. And I don't think it was the event that Marrickville Council used to run down at Enmore Park was a very inclusive event, and I think it had no problems at all. So for that reason, I'll be actually supporting Councillor Stamoulis on this. Thank you.
Any further contributions from councillors? Councillor McKenna?
Look, I'm voting against this. Don't we have a motion on the books saying that we won't have any function on Australia Day? Didn't we? Isn't that what we supported last year? So we would be reversing.
That's correct, councillor.
We'll be reversing a decision that we've already made. It is maybe there were Marrickville people that were unhappy, but I certainly never had a single person speak to me about it. It really is something that I think has passed its use-by date, and I really think we need to continue the way we are, and I don't intend to support the motion. Thank you.
Can I speak, please?
Yes, Councillor Iskander.
Yeah, look, for a few years I was the mayor and I was invited to the Aboriginal Day, and in the same time I used to go to park. In both, I found myself that we should come to a conclusion that both of us are happy. And then I started to ask people in Marrickville and outside Marrickville, and I found that majority of people I asked, they support the change of the day. And after we did as a council, they were very happy with the decision being made. So I really like to support Councillor Dury on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, councillor. Any further contributions? If not, I'll put the motion moved by Councillor Stamoulis, seconded by Councillor Passos. Just before I do so, councillors, I'll just remind you of the process that we adopted for the one vote that we took last week, but which might be a little bit more complicated tonight. And that's, I'll ask every councillor to raise their hand if they're in support of the motion, and then I'll scroll through the screen and just read off the list of names of people who I'm recording in favour of the motion. And if I get any of that wrong, I'll give you a moment at the end just to come back and correct me. So all those in favour of the Stamoulis...
Mr Mayor, do I write a reply on this at all? Or?
Oh, sorry, Councillor Stamoulis. Yes, of course. Please do.
Oh, thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, Mr Mayor, I think a number of issues have been raised, you know, about whether we retain the day. I think that's an important issue, and that comes out clearly in my motion that we have the option to consult our community. The current process that or the current event or that we have before us right now, and that is we fund the Yardin Festival, we haven't taken that out to consultation with our people. We've taken no option. The brand new Inner West Council has not taken any option out to its people about what it would like to see. And there's a great opportunity here for us to do that, to establish that consultation and to also bring in important groups. I've discussed this with, in fact, a person who organised the original Yardin event some years ago, and they said absolutely the Inner West would have the capacity to design and develop with Aboriginal community an appropriate event, and they felt very positive and very strong about that. I think it's important that the Inner West Council does want to consult with its people, does want to ask its people what sort of thing it would like for the future, and I think the opportunities are there if we've got the funding for it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, councillor. I'll now put the Stamoulis Passos motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. In support, I have Councillor Passos, Councillor Macri, Councillor Stamoulis, Councillor Rescind, and that is all. All those against, please raise your hands. I have Councillors Porteous, McKenna. I believe Councillor Steer, although I'll just ask her to come back to the screen because I can't see her, or to confirm her vote. Councillor Drury, Councillor Hesse, Councillor Kiat, Councillor De Cruz, Councillor Lockie, Councillor Iskander, and myself. Councillor Steer, are you there?
Yes, I am. I'm having a lot of trouble getting my picture on the screen. I've had to switch from a, my camera might not be actually in the right direction. I had to switch devices, but I'm here and I'm here and I'm voting against the motion.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Steer is also against. That has been.
Trying to fix what's going on.
Thank you very much. That has been defeated. We'll move on to the next item. The next item is New South Wales Auditor General Report on Local Government 2019. Councillor Stamos. Councillor Stamos, you there?
Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure why my microphone automatically switches off. Maybe there's a time limit to it. I'm not sure.
Please proceed.
Yeah. Thank you. Councillor, it came to my attention through one of the media that the New South Wales Auditor General had identified numerous errors and disclosure deficiencies in our financial accounts and statements. I believe this is a significant concern that we need to get some detailed feedback on about this. What were the types of errors? What were the types of disclosure deficiencies? So that's the first thing that I'm putting forward, is that we find out a little bit about more about this. I'd also like to know why it was that over the previous year that the audit costs for the Inner West Council were double that for the City of Sydney, Parramatta, Canterbury, Bankstown, and I'd assume a number of other larger councils. So you'll see in the amendments that I put up, or the motion itself, I'm asking questions as to whether or not we can have an itemised audit expenditure so we can understand this a little bit better as to why our costs were double last year. Additionally, I went through the ARIC minutes to understand the detail of this a little bit more, and I noticed the minutes of the 6th of November that Council was working with a particular consultant to ensure that we get the financial statements accurate, and an independent report has been produced. So I'm asking that that be provided to councillors, and that should be point 3 in front of you, I think. Point 3 of that motion. So there is an independent report there. And I also noted that we're also working with consultants at this very moment. And I'm asking there again what additional information that we can find out about what their current work is and what they're doing to assist council. Additionally, I'm asking for a schedule of the ARIC meetings for 2020. They don't appear to be on the website, so I'm wondering when the first meeting might arise, whether or not it's even occurred yet so far in 2020, and what that schedule is. That should be given to councillors at one of the meetings in May, so that we're aware that this committee is actually functioning and moving forward with some of the key tasks before them. And additionally, there's reference made to an ARIC meeting on the 20th of November 2019, but there doesn't appear to be any published minutes of this meeting. So I'd like to seek some further clarification on that, whether that meeting occurred and whether or not these minutes can be made available to councillors and also to be placed on the website. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Is there a seconder for the motion? I believe Councillor De Cruz is saying that she'll second the motion. Councillor, do you wish to speak to it?
Yes, I do. Could I ask some questions first?
Yes.
How many staff are there in the financial units preparing the budget, etc.?
I'll put that question to the Chief Executive.
Councillor, I don't have the exact number, but I think there's a dozen or more.
Thank you for that. Councillor Cruz, did you have a further question?
Yes, there was a question. I noticed in the last, in the minutes we've just adopted, a report was to be brought back to this council to the first council meeting in April about the gas and electricity use. When will that report be available?
Put that question to the Chief Executive, but Councillor, I'll just warn that that's veering a little bit off the subject of the motion, but I'll put that question.
I'll need to just double check that, Councillor. I'm not sure it's relevant to this matter, but happy to check for you.
Okay, thank you. That's taken on notice. Councillor De Cruz, do you wish to address the motion?
Yeah, I think it's the gist of what Councillor Stamoulis is putting forward here. That it's the concern that we aren't getting financial information in a timely manner. We've been told in the past that's because of a lack of staff or key staff being unwell. I think that's quite a serious issue. We have a very, very large budget. We have a lot of finances, and we do need proper oversight, and we need reports to council to come to councils that we can actually prepare and be across our finances. So I'm supporting Councillor Stamoulis's motion on this, and thank you for bringing this concern to council. And hopefully, I believe next week we've been promised lots of financial data, but it was already intimated that this would not be available perhaps till the 26th of April. So it's actually really concerning that we're not getting any financial information, that AREC minutes are not published. They're not actually presented to council as such. So, I mean, I would believe that the purpose of having the AREC meeting is to make recommendations to council, to assist councillors to assist us in our oversight of the council. If this is not happening, it begs the question of why have the AREC committee? So for all those reasons, I support Councillor Stamoulis's motion.
Okay, is there any councillor who wishes to speak in support of the motion? Councillor Lockie, was that you?
Me wanting to speak against it.
Okay, Councillor McKenna, I'll go to you.
Right, thank you. This Auditor General's report relates to the 18-19 year, not the current year. Councillors were presented on the 29th of October with the financial reports for the whole year, which prior to them being submitted to the auditor. By the time they came to us, the mistakes had been corrected and they were clearly articulated in that report. Councillor Stamoulis was present at that meeting. He supported the accounts going to being submitted to the Auditor General. There was very little discussion. The auditor was present. And I can take you to many points in the notes in relation to those accounts where these issues were addressed, but nobody chose to ask any questions. The issues were all identified during the process of preparing the accounts, and they were all rectified before with the help of the auditors prior to them being submitted to the Auditor General. So this is a little bit of a witch hunt, I think. Everybody knows that the Director of Finance left in the middle of the financial year, and we had to employ a whole heap of new people. And it's clearly there. I mean, financials come to council and nobody asks any questions, and yet we come back weeks and months later with a notice of motion inferring that there's something dodgy going on. The other thing, of course, is we were given a briefing note on the 10th of the 3rd of the 10th of March, which clearly went to these issues, and it also included a copy of the Auditor General's report. So I think we need to look at the facts. The issues were all identified. Things that strategies have been put in place to make sure that these issues don't occur again. And we're talking about last year's accounts. We need to be focusing on this year and letting our staff get on with trying to get us out of this dreadful situation we are in with the pandemic and the impact that that's had on our accounts. So I'm not supporting this motion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Lockie.
Just some questions through you, Chair, if I could. First one is for Councillor Stamoulos. Because this motion appears to have changed quite a lot from the one that's on in our business papers, are those 5 points the only points in it?
And just before I put that to Councillor Stamoulos, could I ask the, perhaps they've already done this and I don't know how to revert to it, but I could ask the minute takers to display the motion on the screen because I can't currently see it. Maybe Mr. Naylor can send me instructions. Councillor Stamoulos.
John, you need to unmute yourself.
I have no idea why that's happening. Councillor Lockie, I'm going to ask the minute takers to reinstate the original motion that we report back what the nature of those deficiencies and errors were in our report sometime in May. It doesn't have to be at the first meeting in May. I understand the situation we're in. And then the rest of those items are basically flowing from the 9th of November, Audit and Risk Committee meeting. And I'd expect that if there was a meeting on the 20th, which we're not yet aware of, that there's additional items flowing from that. If you look at what they said on the 9th of November, management to work with Dennis on action plans and to report back to a future ARIC meetings on their progress. So this stuff's still going on at the moment. So really what we're asking for is a half-page update on where we're at. The independent report is all.
No, thank you, Councillor. You've clarified Councillor Lockie's question. Councillor Lockie.
So just to be clear, what we're voting on is what was originally tabled in the business papers.
That's correct.
Okay. And look, the only other question I had was I was wondering, thank you, Councillor McKenna, for your input as one of the ARIC committee representatives. I was wondering if Councillor Steer, as the other councillor representative, had any feedback on this as well.
Okay, Councillor Steer, I might use that as an opportunity to go to you as our ARIC delegate.
I have to say I was completely taken by surprise by the dramatic change in item 3 from the original one about the asking for the report to the very detailed one about doing the ARIC, about the ARIC committee. I do have concerns that the ARIC minutes should be tabled to council for councillors to review and discuss. And this was being done for quite some time and hasn't been done recently. And I think that should be reinstated. But I'm also concerned that being taken by surprise like this doesn't give councillors the time to really think it through. So in fact, I was quite confused by which one we were going to do. I endorse Councillor McKenna's comments that when these reports are given to the ARIC committee, which is not a secret committee, it's attended by a large number of senior council staff, as well as Councillor McKenna and myself, to discuss things freely and openly. And it is true that it is made very clear by the both the internal and the external auditors who regularly attend these meetings that when things need to be changed and improved, and when things have been changed and improved, and particularly in relation to the financial discrepancies. I will also point out that the New South Wales Auditor General said that these deficiencies were not isolated to Inner West Council, but were common to all councils which had been amalgamated. And that is simply the result of having to harmonise different, in the case of Inner West Council, 3 different systems, 3 different tracking systems, reporting systems, payment systems, and doing all of that in a very short space of time without adequate funding from the state government. So it is not a reflection on the staff. It is not any indication that things are untoward, or that councillors are being lied to or not being told what to do. It is simply problems in carrying out those tasks that we have been faced with under amalgamation, and that we have discussed on numerous occasions. So we've already had the report, as far as I'm concerned, about and the Auditor General came to speak to us about all of that. So I don't really think that the item 3 in its original form is something that I can support. I'd be happy to talk to Councillor Stamoulis later about reporting the ARIC committee about reporting back to councillors the ARIC minutes for review. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Are there any further speakers? Councillor Passos, I think, is trying to get my attention. Councillor Passos.
First of all, from what I've heard tonight on the debate, I would say that Councillor Stamoulis has been attacked here for being accountable as a councillor. I don't think he's asking for anything that should not be coming to us. I don't see the problem in it. We do not see the minutes, and I cannot understand when we're asking for accountability from our council, no one is being accused of doing anything wrong. And I don't know why, when we are doing what we were elected to do, in the debate it comes back, it's because of the amalgamation or the state government. That's all water under the bridge. Our responsibility as elected representatives are to raise these issues. And I don't think any councillor who raises these type of issues should be treated the way Councillor Stamoulis is being treated tonight.
Okay, thank you for that, councillor. Further contributions? Is there anyone else who wishes to speak to this matter? No? If not, so I'll clarify that there's a seconder for the motion. It's moved by Councillor Stamoulis, seconded by Councillor De Cruz. I'll ask everyone who's in favour of the motion to please raise their hands and keep them raised while I read out the names. All right, Councillor Passos, Councillor Lockie, Councillor...
Do I get the opportunity to...
I keep cutting you off. Sorry, Councillor Stamoulis. Yeah. I'm so focused on process that I'm not allowing proper debate. Over to you.
That's fine, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, Mr. Mayor, this should, I hope, be a very simple motion, and we're talking about the responsibilities of the Audit and Risk Committee, but this is very much goes to the heart of councillors themselves, us and our role, our central role and responsibility about council's financial management. I've simply asked for the errors and disclosures to be made known to council what these are, the nature of these. I think I should have the right to be able to do that. I've asked for a schedule of meetings for 2020. That is so benign, but again, I believe that I'm going to get resistance to that. I'm asking for whether a meeting was held on the 20th of November, and if so, can that be put on the website? I think councillors are going to vote against that. I'm asking for council to report back on what consultants are working with council right now and what they're doing in terms of our financial statements.
Point of order.
Yes, Councillor Porteous.
It seems that Councillor Stamoulis is referring to the amended motion, whereas my understanding is he's talking about us voting or not voting for the amended motion, whereas we're actually voting for the original motion. Can Councillor Stamoulis only address the original motion, because we haven't debated the other motion. We haven't indicated our intention to vote or not for the other motion. So,
thank you. I can clarify that we are voting on the original motion as tabled as a notice of motion, and Councillor Stamoulis, I'll ask you to keep yourself to that motion.
And the additional items then, Mr. Mayor?
Well, you clarified during the debate that you were reverting to the motion as published in the business paper.
I've said that I'm including that in the motion. that was left out.
Come on.
We might just suspend.
I said, go back. Go back.
No, I'll just ask the minute takers to confirm. I believe that the motion that we have before us is the wording as tabled during the with the business papers. Is that correct, Mr.
Please go back over the tape, Mr. Mayor. I said I'm asking the minute takers to include that bit that they'd left out.
Well, it's not my recollection, but either way, we need to get through the debate. So I just want to clarify what we are voting on, Councillor Stamoulis.
Yeah. So it's So the minute takers are putting it back in, but I would hope that you would clarify that on the webcast later, that I asked for that to be reinserted. So because we'd left out the clarification of the errors and deficiencies, disclosure deficiencies, which was important to this motion. And then the rest are just a flow on from that. Some of the detail we want to know about. Are there meetings occurring in 2020?
I understand that. I just suggest that, Councillor Stamoulis, when you table an amendment that's much longer than the motion that you tabled, you can't blame other people for being confused. So I'll ask you to continue.
Mr. Mayor, can I just say, we haven't discussed all of those extra things, and there were a lot of inaccuracies in what Councillor Stamoulis is saying. I don't think we can discuss those at this time. We discussed the actual motion that we all had seen beforehand. So I don't think we can discuss all of that extra because we haven't spoken to it.
Okay, well, I'm going to take that as a point of order and seek advice from the Manager of Governance, Mr. Naylor, about whether such an amendment, which is more substantive than the original motion, can be incorporated by the mover.
Through the chair, no, the motion needs to relate to the actual topic that was originally given notice for. My view would be the additional points would need to be resubmitted with the 7 days notice as required under our code.
Okay, I'm going to accept that advice and rule that the original motion as tabled is what we are voting on. Councillor Stamoulis, you have 1.5 minutes remaining to speak to that motion. Councillor Stamoulis?
Can you hear me, Mr. Mayor?
I can. The gremlin's got you again today.
Sorry?
The gremlin's got you again.
Okay, no, we're back on now. So
Yeah.
We'll leave the motion as it stands there, and then I'll table the rest of it in 7 days with 7 days notice. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. I'll now put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Councillor Passos, Councillor Lockie, Councillor De Cruz, Councillor Kiat, Councillor Macri, Councillor Hesse, Councillor Stamoulis, Councillor Steer, Councillor Rescind, Councillor Porteous in favour, which would leave myself, Councillor Iskander, Councillor McKenna and Councillor Drury against. That has been carried. Does anyone disagree with that vote? Okay. Let's move on to the next item. Item 4, notice of motion, support for Indigenous communities opposing fracking in the Northern Territory. Councillor Steer.
Mayor, may I second this?
Yes, Councillor. Councillor Steer.
Seconding this motion. We have had a number of submissions from concerned people, all entirely in support of this motion. When SS Rock agreed to the contract with Origin Energy, it was all fine. It is great that we are getting energy from the Moree solar farm. It is great that so much of our energy is coming from the Moree solar farm, but it is not great that Origin Energy is conducting shale gas fracking in the Northern Territory. I have been a long-term campaigner against unconventional gas fracking since 2009, and we have managed to keep it at bay in New South Wales, although possibly not for much longer. We know what it does to the environment. It poisons the land, the water supplies, it poisons human health and animal health. It pollutes the air. The toxins that are created by fracking have a very long half-life and do not leave the environment for a very long time. The fracking process itself which disturbs the rock strata by forcibly pushing in huge amounts of water, not only uses up our water supply in a country, in the most arid country on earth, that is frequently the victim of drought, but it also causes earthquakes, subsidence, and damages the land on which people live permanently. These things do not change. Even in Blackpool in England, they have had earthquakes as a result of fracking. And finally, the UK has stopped doing fracking. But so that is generally the things that are wrong with fracking. They are well known, they are well documented. The New South Wales Chief Scientist did a very long report on it, and none of it has ever been acted on by the New South Wales government. What is important is in the Northern Territory, the Aboriginal lands, the Alawa people have not been asked for their permission to mine these lands. They do not want these lands being affected by fracking because of the health and cultural problems that it will cause. And they have made their views very public, and they have been greatly ignored. At the moment, this is a golden opportunity to actually write to Origin Energy and to tell Origin Energy what we think as a council and as a client of and a consumer of Origin Energy, because there is a moratorium on fracking, which was caused by not only by COVID-19, but by damage caused to the drill and problems with the fracking. Origin Energy have announced that they want to reinstate fracking in July. So now is the time to make our voice heard, and I ask that all of you vote for this motion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Drury, do you wish to speak to it?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And my support for this comes out of my concern that the traditional owners of that land are opposed or not fully in support of the fracking. I understand that Origin Energy is working through the Land Council there, but there are significant traditional owners who have very deep concerns about what is being proposed. The proposal, they say, will contaminate their drinking water, poison their farmland, and also destroy a tourist industry that they're seeking to get up and going to create employment. Origin Energy needs to rethink this. Spearheading fracking in the Northern Territory without proper respectful consent of traditional owners is not something we want to be associated with. And we signed up in good faith to the SS Rock power purchase agreement with Origin Energy, which promised us lower energy prices and to reduce emissions through the inclusion of renewable energy from Moree Solar Farm. It's a very positive step. That's the sort of step we want to see Origin Energy go down. That's the sort of stuff that members of our community in the inner west want to see. We want to support. We have in place our strategy not to invest in companies that are carrying on these sorts of activities, and yet we have this Origin Energy proposing to do this. I thank Councillor Steer for bringing this motion forward. I thank all those who have communicated with me about this over the last couple of days, and I look forward to this being well supported and being our position that we take off to AGLA. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Drury. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in support of the motion?
Instead.
If there's no one to speak in support of it, I'll go to Councillor Passis to speak against it.
First of all, in this climate, with what we're going through now with this virus, I would have thought we would have had more on the agenda tonight to see what way we're going to come out of this crisis, with or without the consent of the Indigenous people. I don't know enough about this, and not enough information was given to us. I don't see anything from any Indigenous group asking us to support this. And if it is, as Councillor Steer has said, so problematic, why would consent even be, with or without consent? It shouldn't go ahead. But I don't think we are in the place now to make these decisions. And you know what you're doing. You're playing politics that you can say, I've put this up and I've picked up half a dozen votes. With the name the Inner West Council has in all of Australia, I really don't think too many people are going to take notice. We have grave problems. We have people out of work. We have businesses gone absolutely broke. People losing their homes, people out of work, people losing their relatives. People cannot visit their relatives. And all this council can talk about is something we cannot do a thing about. I will be voting against this motion, and I would hope we have more constructive motions coming up in the future to help our residents and ratepayers.
Okay, thank you for that. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak against the motion?
No.
No?
For the
If
motion.
not, we'll vote on the motion then. I'll put the Steer jury recommendation. All those in favour, please raise your hands. I have Councillors Iskander, Lockie, De Cruz, Kiat, Councillor Hesse, Councillor Stamoulis, Councillor Drury, Councillor Steer, Councillor McKenna and Councillor Porteous. Councillor Rescind, are you against the motion? Against the motion. And I am also in support. I'll declare that carried. Next item, just one moment. I'll just return to the agenda on my phone. Next item on the agenda is notice of motion, Greek Precinct, Marrickville and Dulwich Hill. Councillor Iskander.
Let me start by saying the history of the Greek community in Marrickville is long and very bright, and really that made Marrickville different. I would like to say in this occasion that this is the least we can do to pay back to the Greek community and to show that we really respect their contributions over the years, and they still contributing. I would like also to thank the councillors who supported me in this, the mayor and Mark, Dury and Lucille and everyone I spoke to, and York too. And I would like to thank all the Greek leaders who I had the chance to communicate with and speak to, and the ordinary people like me in the streets of Marrickville. They welcomed that, and they really were very happy to see something after they heard what we are going to do for the little Portugal and Italy, and here we don't know what we're gonna call it. I leave it open to the people to choose what they wanna call it. But let me tell you, I arrived to Australia in 1977, and that days, there used to be 42% of the residents of Marrickville, and they call it Little Athens. I'm not gonna propose this name now. I leave it to the people, but I'm very eager to see it, and I'm very proud to have it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. And can I thank you for your diligent work in preparing this motion and the series of proposals which have been so well received by the local community. Councillor Drury, did you wish to speak to the motion as the seconder?
Could I simply reinforce your comments in relation to Councillor Skander, who has taken this motion up, had the discussions, and then they're not easy and quick discussions. You got to talk to a lot of people to get such an idea kind of up and going. I think it's a cracker of an idea. I reckon our community will love it. Let's get it out there and see what people think. I think these ideas add to the character of our community, and people want to live in the inner west because of those unique and quirky things that are the character of our area. I think recognising the enormous contribution of Greek residents, particularly to the Marrickville part of the inner west, but also the whole of the inner west, I think is a very valuable thing to do.
Thank you for that. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in support of the motion?
Myself, Councillor Hesse.
Councillor Hesse.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, look, I'd like to say thanks to Councillor Iskander and Councillor Drury for bringing this motion forward. This is the 35th year I've lived in Marrickville. It's changed a lot, but there's one of the things that was impossible to miss when I moved here in 1985 was, of course, the Greek contribution to this area. And to say the least, I have a number of wonderful friends of Greek heritage who, and I can imagine as Mark talk about Sam discussions, there's nothing a lot of our Greek friends like more than having a good discussion and a good argument. And indeed, I'm privileged to live next to a wonderful Greek family who consistently pass wonderful food and an awareness of the life of people who've left another country to come to this place. So I think recognising the communities that have changed this place and changed for the better is an important thing. And I look forward to working with other councils in our community to make sure that this goes off without a hitch. And I know that my Greens colleagues are in strong support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hesse. Councillor De Cruz. Councillor De Cruz.
Thanks. Sorry, I just tried to turn my mic on. Yep, I'd like to thank Councillor Skander for bringing this motion. There is the Greek community has contributed significantly to the Australian community and is an intrinsic part of it. I have to say that on visiting Greece, it was quite striking that I didn't need to order a Greek salad. I just needed to order a salad because it had all of the ingredients which we are very familiar with as a Greek salad. Also, the other significant contribution is to our cuisine. I know there's local Greek families who migrated to Australia. They worked very hard. They started the milk bars. They introduced us to coffee, to decent food. So I think that the contribution of the Greek community to Australia is really, really significant. There's a Greek Orthodox church in Leichhardt. I'm not sure if there's other Greek Orthodox churches elsewhere in the LGA. But yes, I think we really do need to recognise the multicultural communities that have made our community such a wonderful place to live and have brought us so many wonderful things. And certainly I came to Australia in 1970 to Perth, but the significance of the Greek community right across Australia is huge. And I think if the Inner West is going to acknowledge it, I think we really should acknowledge the historical contribution they've made to our community, and that they are now an embedded part of the Australian community, and you can call them Greek Australians, not Greeks. So thank you.
Okay, Councillor Passos, are you seeking to get my attention?
Yes, and you know I have. I'd like to support this motion. There's no getting away from the fact that the area is known as a Greek area, even though it has changed a lot, and a lot of the Greeks, the original ones, have moved out. I know that the Greeks will be very proud of this, and Greeks have offered more than just food. Some of our best doctors, some of our best professors, the list goes on the contribution that they have made in this country. And it's good that they're being recognised in this way. And I have spoken also to a lot of Greeks, being half Greek myself. I hope the councillors that are really supporting this and really respect the Greek community will also respect, it's most of the Greeks that are having problems with their trees, with their houses being forced, heritage listings, with what they're going through. And I'm glad that we respect them and we listen to them. Let's listen to the 80-year-old lady from Stanmore that came up to council 3 times, desperately wanting a branch removed that we will not remove. I'm going to support this motion. I hope we don't upset the Vietnamese in the area. We can also look at doing something for their contribution. But please, if we really respect all different groups in the community, don't just respect them when it's a feel-good issue that we're raising.
Okay, thank you for that.
Chair,
There's no further
conclusion, please.
Chair.
Councillor Macri, then Councillor Iskander.
Chair, thanks for that. Thanks to Sam for bringing this up. I think I'm quite comfortable with this. We spoke about this many times when we started on this program of from Little Portugal to Little Italy, and I've always said that we have to recognise all of our communities that have contributed to the area to make it what it is. And there's no going away from the fact that Marrickville was the first stop for all migrant groups, particularly in the post-World War II migration. Then after we had the war in Lebanon, after the Greeks and the Italians and the Portuguese came, then we had the actual Lebanese came. There was a wave in the 70s of the Lebanese. Then we had the war in Vietnam and we had the Vietnamese. So I hope this is a rolling program to find areas, and we find little precincts and little niches. We might have to share some precincts with some of our community, because they did. And that was a great thing about Marrickville. Everyone blended in very well and we became one community. So I fully support this, and I hope it just moves forward to bigger and better things. That's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. There being no other contributions, I go to Councillor Iskander for his right of reply.
Councillors, for the very good contribution. And I would like really to say, before coronavirus started, we were planning to have the first meeting for the Vietnamese community in the area to try to do something like that. It is a strategy to contribute back to this very important formation of our society, and to say to the Australian people, we are very Australians, we are very good Australians, we are against racism, we don't accept any act of racism against any of our different background or little minority. So in this occasion, let me say, Mr. Mayor, that we did very well by doing this, and people will be very happy when they see that we are really working toward one Australia, one respected society, and community, one respected council, which is the Inner West Council. Now, everyone knows that we are leading this, and I spoke with some councillors in other councils, and they were very happy to learn from our experience and to try to do it in their councils. Last thing I would like to say, I am very happy to continue. It was my luck or some other community good luck that we were extended our term another year, so I have time to work with some other communities to do exactly the same. Thank you very much, Darcy, for your support. Thank you for all the councillors who are really supporting this, and good luck to everyone.
Good on you, councillor. Well done. I'll now put the Iskander-Drury resolution. All those in favour, please raise your hands. I have councillors Passis, Iskander, Lockie, De Cruz, Kiat, Macri, Hesse, Stamoulis, Drury, Steer, Rescind, McKenna, Porteous, and myself. That is unanimous. Next item on the agenda is the Councillor Lockie on the Religious Discrimination Bill.
Thank you, Councillor. Oh, I'm getting a lot of feedback there. I think my background materials on this are pretty clear, but if anyone hasn't had a chance to read it, or for anyone watching on the live stream, what I'm calling for Council to do on this bill is to publicly declare our support for discrimination laws that treat everyone fairly and equally. I think, if anything, that would be a reiteration of our current position, and against the unbalanced provisions that exist in the current draft of the Religious Discrimination Bill, which is due to come back to the Australian Parliament, Federal Parliament, at any point from here. Because I think everybody on council would agree that no one should be discriminated against on the basis of their religious beliefs, including whether or not they hold a belief. But this bill in its current form goes far beyond that. And I know what I'm concerned about, and what many, many others are concerned about, is that there are clauses in this existing bill that essentially give people a license to discriminate against others on the basis of a religious belief. And if it were to go ahead in its current form, it would open up the potential for a lot of division, a lot of hate, if it passes as it is. What's really horrific about this bill, and what is unprecedented in Australian legal terms, is that if it's passed as it is, it would actively override other discrimination laws, which would mean it would weaken the protections that we now have in place for, say, LGBTIQ+ people, for women, for people with disabilities, from people from different racial or cultural backgrounds, and somewhat ironically, even against people of faith, where religious beliefs may differ from each other. That obviously covers a lot of groups within the Inner West, which is part of one of the reasons I've brought it to council tonight, because it's going to have a big impact on our local community of residents. And because the other reason I've brought it is because this bill overrides employment laws such as the Fair Work Act and professional codes of conduct that would allow organisations like our council to be able to take action if any of our employees were discriminated against on the basis of religious belief. It has implications for us potentially as a major employer and a service provider in the Inner West. But it's because of these unbalanced provisions that we've seen people and organisations, including religious organisations across the country, speak out against the current form of the bill and endorse Equalities Australia's very clear freedom from discrimination statement, which I'm asking us to support tonight as well. At a local level and in our surrounding area, the organisations that have already signed on to this statement include the City of Sydney, Rainbow Families, the Red Rattler Theatre in Marrickville, IKEA, Domestic Violence New South Wales, and many, many more. I believe that Inner West Council has an obligation to join them, to speak out for our residents, to represent our values and our vision as a community, and I ask for councillors to support it.
Okay, thank you very much, councillor. Is there a seconder for the motion?
Yes, I'd like to second it.
Councillor De Cruz?
Oh, Councillor Steer.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Steer, my mistake.
Thank you. I endorse all the comments made by Councillor Lockie. Freedom of religion is guaranteed in our constitution. Australia was, I think, the first country in the world to guarantee freedom of religion as a right. And no one has ever been prevented from practicing their religion as they wish in their privacy of their own home. However, other people have rights too. Freedom of religion doesn't mean that religious people have the right to impose their views on everybody else who may not agree with them. It does not mean that people who are good at their jobs can be sacked because of their private life. We now have same-sex marriage. That means people who are of the same sex have the same rights to be married and have all the rights and obligations of marriage as opposite sex people. But religious organisations wish to prevent them from working in their workplaces, schools, services. And in Australia, we have a very huge network of religious services being provided to our community. That is to the credit of those religions, how in doing that, and they started up before government took that role, and that is historical. But it doesn't mean that they should be able to discriminate against people for what they do in their private lives, as long as they are obeying the law and living their life with the same rights and obligations as everybody else. It would mean that people would have to go back into hiding, would have to pretend that they weren't doing these things, and that is the exact opposite of what the vast majority of Australians wanted when they supported same-sex marriage and when they supported rights for other individuals. It also means that one religion may refuse to hire someone from another religion. It may mean that they refuse to hire a certain gender because they think they're inferior. It opens up a massive can of worms where people are discriminated against simply because of an inherent characteristic that they have under the basis of religion. Now, every religion that I know of preaches peace, love, and humanity. And so what I say is, let's practice that too and support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any other councillors who wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, please.
I would like-
Councillor Hesse as well. Yeah.
I've got Councillor Iskander, then Councillor Hesse.
Councillor Passes.
Councillor Iskander, then Councillor Hesse, then Councillor Passes.
Okay. Thank you very much, Councillor Lucky, for bringing this. And I strongly support you on every word you said. The thing I would like to really highlight for our fellow councillors, that I started with the mayor of establishing the interfaith for Inner West. Again, when I started doing that for Marrickville, it was very successful, it worked very well, and all different religious churches participated in that, Muslims, Jews, all sides of Christianity. Plus, we were able to invite the lesbian and other group to this. I am very proud to declare that we are working on that. Unfortunately, the meetings didn't take place because of Corona, but trust me, we did very good, important step to put it in action. The other thing I would like to say in this very important occasion, that we are facing in the Inner West huge actions against each other from some racist people, we really need to get together. We really need to protect each other and stand for each other's rights. I now should say many Chinese friends contacted me and they said they are really paying a lot because of Corona. Many people, they are taking it as a joke or real criticism, and they are really saying to them, you are the Chinese Corona. I would like really all the councillors to start talking seriously about this, and the way to really cut it from the very beginning is maybe a mayoral minute on behalf of all of us to go to the Chinese community leaders and to the Council General. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Councillor Iskander. Councillor Hesse?
Thanks, Mayor. I wish to move a couple of amendments which I have sent through to Ian and Catherine earlier. That is, and I'll read them out just to make it easier. It's adding a 2A in the first section, that the current religious freedom debate scapegoats a range of people, particularly the LGBTIQ community, and 2B, the government's religious freedom review has contributed to continuing a homophobic political climate. And I'll speak to that if I may.
Yes.
I think, and I want to take up too where Councillor Iskander left off too, because I think it is quite proper to add in people from different cultural backgrounds too. It would be good to simply have this as a more anodyne motion, if you like. But I guess the reason that Councillor Lockie has put it there, and certainly we Greens support it, is, and I clearly, I guess, Labor councillors too, and that's great, is that there is a clear agenda, and I regret to say, by the extreme right in this country to demonise and marginalise those people who one might decide are the other, notwithstanding the fact, of course, that the majority of Australians don't believe they're the other anymore. I think we're in a dangerous time, and we shouldn't let go or let us slip down the road of continuing discrimination in the name of protecting someone else. There's no doubt at all that we need a Human Rights Act in Australia, which would protect everyone. As Councillor Steer properly notes, people's religion is already protected, but it is not protected. Our political rights are not protected, particularly under our constitution. So we need a lot of stuff out there. We do not need this legislation by the government. It is to pursue a narrow and discriminatory agenda, and those people who are most discriminated against are those who've been discriminated against historically, particularly, of course, those people in the LGBTIQ community. And that's not acceptable. I don't believe it's acceptable to anyone in the Inner West. We saw the vote in the plebiscite around same-sex marriage. Inner West Council area, I think, was the second or third highest vote in support of that. The fact that some people in the area don't like that is their right to have that view, but I don't think it should be the right to discriminate against a person in any part of your life because you don't like that person's sexuality or their religion or the colour of their skin. So I think we really do need to send a strong message to the federal government that our community doesn't agree with them, their move in this direction. And I believe that the amendments I put forward strengthen the intention of what Councillor Lockie had put forward. Thank you.
Okay, well, I'll go to Councillor Passis, then Councillor Kiat.
Well, I'll be voting against this motion. Again, this motion coming up at this time with what this council's going through, I have never seen the community more united. I will challenge any councillor to tell me that they talk to more residents than I do. I will challenge them. and people of Asian background. I have had not one complaint or one person saying that they're feeling uncomfortable because of this coronavirus. I would ask you, councillors from different political backgrounds, do you feel guilty of what this federal government's doing? You're Australian. You mightn't be a Liberal supporter or any other party supporter, but do you feel accountable if a government says or does something? We have grave problems ahead of us. And for these issues to come up now from councillors who, I believe, one councillor made a statement that a person, if he was gay or whatever, he could lose his position or his employment. Apparently you haven't run a business. If you run a business and you have bills to pay and you've laid your home on the line for that business to succeed, if you have a good staffer, you don't care of that staff's background or how they live their life. If he is a good worker, you will look after that staff and you will not get rid of him. Another councillor just said that the highest vote for the same-sex marriage was in the inner west. That is the whole reason that certain councillors keep raising this issue. Different groups, if they feel that this draft is not to their liking, they are well organised and they can send their submissions in. But councillors that keep raising these things only for political purposes really should sit down and think what they're doing. I am so proud of Australia. I am so proud of how we treat each other, especially in this crisis. My neighbours, the people up at the shopping centre, my chemist, my doctor, and they're all from different backgrounds, and there's a few gays in between. They're not a bit concerned about the things that you councillors are raising. We're concerned about each other. Stop playing political games.
Okay, Councillor Kiat.
Thanks, Chair. I'll be brief. I just want to talk about the motion before us and also just touch on the issue that Councillor Skander raised about the Chinese community. First of all, I'm very surprised that Councillor Passis has raised the issue of her neighbour in relation to this motion when the tribunal found that she engaged in homosexual vilification of that neighbour, and that was upheld on appeal. What I'd say about this motion is it's an issue that's pretty close to my heart. I actually grew up in the church and then went to law school and looked at the issue very closely. And it actually is true that the existing laws around our existing anti-discrimination laws already have religious exemptions that are very broad. Councillor Passis spoke about a business owner. It may not apply, religious exemptions don't apply to ordinary business owners, but many people in our state are employed by religious organizations, particularly in schools and in service providers. And they actually do have quite broad exemptions to employment protections and also other protections in service provision that apply to the queer community. So it's really important not only that we oppose the bill that the federal government is considering, but also if anyone here ever gets the opportunity to look at these issues at a state level or at a federal level within your party or even within a religious organization that you might be part of, it's really important to know that the existing laws do not protect gay people. That's a fact, whether they're students or teachers, and it applies in many organizations. It's an issue that really we're going in the wrong direction with the religious discrimination bill. On the issue of the Chinese community, I'm Chinese. I've actually never felt Chinese until recently, and it's only when you sort of start feeling that in the street that you think, wow, this is really serious. And you start to understand the everyday racism that people experience when they're a member of a group or a race that is oppressed. And look, I think it's really important. I think what Sam has said about the Mayor bringing forth a Mayoral Minute could be really important. Perhaps the next meeting, I've written to the Chief Executive to see what we are doing in terms of reaching out to the Chinese community through our multicultural officer. So look, I'd support any move in that direction to show what support we can and take what action we can. Thanks. Darcy, you're muted.
Thank you for that. I was just saying that I am happy to commit to bringing forward such a resolution as a Mayoral Minute next Tuesday. And I note that in our resolution of the extraordinary meeting, that at Councillor Iskander's instigation, there was an explicit refutation of racism as a response to the COVID-19 crisis. Are there any further contributions that councillors would like to make? If not, I'll go to Councillor Lockie for her right of reply.
Yeah, just before I start, can I just clarify with Councillor Hesse, where you've said such as Human Rights Act in your amendment, did you mean such as a Human Rights Act?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, look, I'm happy to incorporate that amendment. I'll just speak very briefly in terms of the question about why bring this up when we have so many other things to be concerned about with coronavirus response and so forth. I would say that I would thoroughly agree that this absolutely should be put way on the back burner compared to Australia's response to coronavirus, as well as our own communities. However, I'm also very conscious that this particular draft of this particular bill was launched in the last crisis that Australia was experiencing. And in fact, the Prime Minister and I believe the Attorney General were literally shrouded in bushfire smoke that was blanketing Sydney Harbour to make this announcement. So I am not entirely convinced that they will put this on the back burner as much as it should be. In terms of, and the only other thing I would want to recognise is that I obviously did not draft this motion alone or without consulting anyone in our community or any experts in this area. So I would like to thank Inner West Council's LGBTIQ working group for their advice and support on this motion, Alex Greenwich and the members of his office team, as well as Equality Australia for contacting us all to let us know their view on this. That's all I have to say. I hope that councillors support this.
Thank you for that, Councillor. I'll now put the motion with Councillor Hesse's amendment having been incorporated. All those in favour, please raise your hands. I have Councillors Iskander, Lockie, De Cruz, Kiat, Macri, Hesse, Stamoulis, Drury, Steer, Rescind, McKenna and Porteous. That has been carried with Councillor Passis against. Next item, item 7, notice of motion, WestConnex independent property impact. Councillor Lockie.
Thanks, councillors, for your support on that last motion. With this particular one, again, I think my background notes on this are pretty clear, but if there's anyone who's unfamiliar with this independent panel and what it's designed to do, it was established as one of the conditions of approval for stage 3 of the WestConnex project. And it was established after residents who'd experienced property damage during the construction of the previous stages of WestConnex found that when they put in claims for compensation, as they're allowed to do under the process, to the project contractors, they were just getting their claims refused, sometimes even without any kind of inspection being carried out before they were turned down. And that often it was being blamed on dry weather, drought, even a dripping garden tap at one case. So after a lot of lobbying from members of the community, as well as councils and so forth, the panel was introduced as a condition, essentially as a low-cost form of appeal for residents. So if any residents who'd had property damage were getting nowhere with the contractors, either they or the project proponents, which was formerly the RMS, is now Transport for New South Wales, could refer that claim for property damage to the panel, which is designed to be completely independent of any of the players on the project. This panel would then review that case, do their own inspections of the property, make a determination and resolve the dispute. So that's all very positive, a very positive development. However, what's being reported in the media in recent weeks is that residents who have referred their claims to this panel have just found themselves left in limbo for months on end. They get their inspections done by the panel. From what I understand, the issue doesn't appear to lie with that, with them. But either way, these residents have been left with no meaningful updates on the progress of their claims. And meanwhile, the damage to their properties just gets worse and worse. I've spoken to some of the residents who are directly affected by this. And as you can imagine, these unexplained delays causing more trauma, more delay, more expense to what has already been a traumatic and long and expensive process. So far, most of the claims that are going through this panel are outside of our local government area, but that obviously stands to change really soon with now that construction on stage 3 is underway. An unprecedented number of properties are going to be adjacent to a surface road construction area or have the tunnel run underneath them. And again, the depths at which a tunnel is going to run is going to be at unprecedentedly shallow depths. So what I'm asking Council to do tonight, as you can see from the motion, is to contact Transport for New South Wales as the relevant agency and the Minister for that department to express our concern at these delays that have been reported, to ask them to take the actions that are required to fix any delays, and to also be much more transparent with us and with the general public about this process and the steps and timelines that are involved, so residents know what they can expect. We really need to do this before vast numbers of our residents are potentially affected, so I ask councillors to support it.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Is there a seconder for the motion? Seconded by oh, there's a stampede.
Stampede. Councillor Steer, did you say?
Yes, did you?
Yes, I did put my hand up.
Yeah, go for it.
Yes, thank you. I endorse the comments of Councillor Lockie in relation to that, in relation to this motion. WestConnex we have been living with for a really, really, really long time, and it's one of the few things that is still going on in these times when everybody else has to be working from home. The property damage, the damage to people's lives is still going on, still hasn't been really dealt with by the government, and it will keep going on as construction of stage 3 continues. It really needs to, council has done a lot in relation to helping residents in relation to this, but we still need to do more, and we can't let Transport for New South Wales let it slide by using the COVID quarantine as an excuse or any other excuse. We have to make them accountable, we have to keep them to account, and we have to make sure that the residents of the Inner West are looked after. People I know have become extremely ill from the stress and worry about these matters. That is actually more important in many ways than the financial suffering that they might also be undergoing. And people need certainty in their lives. They need to know that their house is going to be secure. They need to know that they can pay their bills, and they need to know that they're not going to be suffering from the depredations of government whenever the government feels like it. And that's why we really need to support this motion and keep Transport for New South Wales and the New South Wales government accountable to the residents of the Inner West for the
thank you,
damage and suffering that they have caused for almost 10 years now. Thank you.
Councillor De Cruz.
Yeah, I just had a question in regard to council property, whether we get whether the council gets dilapidation reports where the tunnel's affecting our properties.
I can confirm that we do, but I'll put that question to the officers if you prefer.
Thank you.
That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor De Cruz, did you wish to speak to the motion?
Yeah, I would support both Councillor Lockie and Councillor Steer's comments about how we need to support our residents in this very stressful, I mean, it's constant stress about what's happening to your house, how it will go, whether you will sustain damage, you won't sustain damage, whether you'll be able to restore your house if it does sustain damage, and whether in fact you will be compensated to be able to do that. And of course, this is all being exacerbated at the moment with constant work where people having to be at home, and the noise. I wandered down to North Annandale the other day, and there's a lot of equipment going constantly, making a noise right through the day where people are required to be at home. So this just adds to the complete stress that's going on amongst people. To see that continuing, those projects continuing while others are being forced to, as Councillor Passer said earlier, might be losing their job, don't know what the future is, might be losing their family. I mean, I think we're soon going to see, I mean, I've already had one report of someone who was sick and having to deal with construction noise that's going on. So I think we do need to extend whatever support we can to our residents to protect their mental health, to support them in this sort of area. So I urge other councillors to support this motion as well.
Darcy?
Yes.
Yeah. Can I speak?
Yes, sorry, Councillor Porteous, and then Councillor Passes.
Okay. Yeah, look, I'd like to start by thanking Councillor Lockie for bringing forth this motion. I think it's really important that we are obviously speaking up for the residents and the fact that they're not getting what was promised to them in terms of how this panel was supposed to perform. Because let's be honest, it wasn't working before, and council's also let them down by stopping the dilapidation reports that council was doing previously. And the panacea that was promised to the residents was that this new panel, because it was being managed through Transport New South Wales, would in fact provide them with the kind of prompt and fair assessment of their property damage, which would enable them to have the kind of response and the finalisation of their claims in a much more timely and obviously in a way that was going to be much fairer in terms of getting their just compensation. Look, it really is so disappointing to see that that's not the case, and that again the residents are being let down. Again, the residents are being treated like collateral damage in this WestConnex fiasco. And obviously this is one element of it, and there's other elements of it which we've also seen which are also outstanding, like the awful construction works that are going on 24/7, and the issues around parking and traffic congestion and air pollution and loss of good access routes for cycling and walking, and the list goes on, which I think also points to the fact that the motion that I moved earlier in March and is coming back to the council meeting in the next week about the WestConnex Community Liaison Forum, with the proposal that that be expanded to also include the Western Harbour Tunnel, and some proposals as to how to move forward with that, is really important, because these are ongoing issues for the community. They are issues for many people in the community. They are not getting resolved. You can't trust the promises that are made by Transport New South Wales. You can't trust anything that's being told to you by the contractor. And basically, where do people go? Where do they go to try and get some sort of fair outcome, to have somebody listen to them, to have somebody stand up for them? It's got to be council. We have to be the go-to people. We have to be that line in the sand for the community, because they are really not getting the representation that they need. So I think, I'm obviously supporting this motion tonight. I think it's really important. But I also think it's really important that that we also support next week the establishment of a community forum, which is going to properly represent the needs of our residents with these big constructions like WestConnex and Western Harbour Tunnel, because they are grossly unfair to our community. It's not a fair fight, and our community's losing big time. And the voice that needs to be there for them is the council. So we need to be constantly advocating for them, constantly identifying where those issues are, where the impacts are, and seeking to find solutions for them. This is not a marginal issue for our council. This is a core issue for our council, and it's something. Yes, there are a lot of other really serious issues that are facing us, and obviously coronavirus is the big one, but this is something that has been going on, as Councillor Steer said, for a long, long time now, and the impacts are massive. And I don't even want to think about things like air pollution and what that's going to do in terms of the health for our whole community, and particularly for young people that are living near a lot of those stacks that are going to be unfiltered. And there's just so much evidence coming out across the world about what that means in terms of the long-term health impacts for people where they've got that, the impacts of that air pollution. So whether it's the deterioration, the properties that are the claims not being processed for property damage, whether it's the impacts on the environment, the impacts on people's well-being, their quality of life, we just need to be there for our community. And so I support this motion tonight, and I also call on the council to also support a proper community forum moving forward for the Western Harbour Tunnel. Thanks.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councillor Stamos.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I think Councillor Porteous has made some very, very important comments there, and while the substance of this motion is very strong, it continues on a process of writing letters and as best we can to ministers and to agencies involved. But I think what Councillor Porteous has highlighted to me was that there's got to also be a role for council. We need to advocate on behalf of our residents. We need to act on behalf of our residents. And I think that's what this motion is fundamentally missing. While it's a well-intentioned and very good motion, I think it's missing that council advocacy. And I think that's something that I would like to add with the approval of Councillor Lockie, is that council develops ways to advocate more strongly on behalf of its residents. So we investigate options to do that more strongly, because we will see more, as the motion says, we will see more residents impacted, and we'll see the agencies not responding, the minister not responding. We're going to see this in the future. So what are these options that would be available to council to advocate more strongly for our residents, to in fact meet with our residents, to have forums, to meet with them one-on-one and act more on their behalf? So I think there's a very strong role for council to play. So if that amendment would be accepted, I'd be pleased. Thank you.
Next, Mr. Mayor, after Councillor Porteous.
Sorry. Someone was trying to get my attention, then I was just muted.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I was after Councillor Porteous, wasn't I?
Oh, sorry, Councillor, please proceed.
Okay, I will be supporting this motion because there's nothing that I loathe more as when people are promised something and it's not delivered. Now, Councillor Lockie has put this up and she feels for the people, and so do I, if they're putting up with delays and problems. It would also be good if we also the councillor watched her own council with the delays and what our residents are putting up with. So it's not just good enough that we go after the state or federal government. Are we addressing our responsibilities? I'm still waiting for the Pocket Park. There's streets that are promised from last year to be resurfaced that have not been done. We've got broken footpaths everywhere. We've got lawns that are not mowed. Residents are not getting the information they need. They don't know what they have to do to get the attention of the council. Residents are ignored. So that's why I am supporting this motion because I hate people being left in limbo and have nowhere to turn. But let's also look at our residents and our responsibilities. I'm afraid to say he who is without sin casts the first stone. It's good enough to go after the government, and I will support it if they're doing the wrong thing. Let's get our house in order before we start making accusations and expecting other people to do the right thing. Excuse me.
Darcy, you need to unmute.
Sorry about that. Councillor Stamoulis, just before I go to anyone else, can I confirm if you provided the wording of the amendment that you're proposing to the minute takers?
I'm just trying to contact the minute taker by email, Mr. Mayor, and should get a response back in. Let's see.
Okay, well, I won't go to Councillor Lockie to consider the amendment until it's been tabled.
I can see it up on the screen. It says that council develop options to advocate more strongly on behalf of residents.
Okay. Councillor Lockie, are you amenable to that?
Yeah, and I'll speak to it in my right of reply.
Okay. Is there any further contributions? If not, I'll go to Councillor Lockie.
Thanks, Councillor. Look, thank you for the expressions of support and for the recognition that this is going to be an increasingly important issue for many residents in our area. Just in relation to Councillor Stamoulis's amendment, it wasn't an oversight to not include something like this. Partly is that I know that I and Councillor Porteous have been speaking very frequently to the CEO and other, sorry, for some reason my video went off. I know that Councillor Porteous and myself, as well as other councillors, I'm sure, are in a lot of contact, sometimes near daily, with both the CEO of council and council staff about various advocacy measures we're looking at. And I know that Councillor Porteous has already addressed the fact that we will be speaking specifically to things like the community forum that Councillor Stamoulis was talking about as well in our meeting next week. So I'd encourage that. I should also recognise as well that in regard, part of what, as I was developing this motion, again, I was talking to Council CEO about the issues that have been reported and experienced. And I should note that that ball has already started rolling with members of Transport for New South Wales that many of our staff are in daily or near daily contact with. So I thank him for starting on that. However, I do believe that as well, in conjunction with those daily advocacy efforts, that we do need to escalate as a council to the heads of the department involved and to the minister involved to express these same concerns. It's really only by coming at it from lots of different angles that we're going to be able to make any headway with this kind of thing. So again, thanks councillors for your support, and I'm happy to vote on it now. Although I think, oh, there we go.
Okay, thank you for that. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. In favour is Councillor Passis, Councillor De Cruz, Councillor Kiat, Councillor Macri, Councillor Hesse, Councillor Stamoulis, Councillor Drury, Councillor Steer, Councillor Rescind, Councillor McKenna, Councillor Porteous, Councillor Iskander, and Councillor Lockie, and of course myself. That has been carried. Councillors, I believe that's the last item on the agenda, other than an urgency motion, which has been tabled by Councillor Porteous and myself in relation to lights in parks. Councillors will be aware that I think most of us have received representation or multiple representations from residents about the issue of access to recreational space, including obviously the issue of the Bay Run. And one thing that has been proposed by many people in the community is that the lights that would normally be on for sports training, but which have been turned off because all of those training sessions, weekday training sessions and weekend games have been cancelled, that they could be turned back on in order to try to spread out the period of time at which residents were able to access our parks for passive and active recreation, and active recreation in particular. So Councillor Porteous and I both received many representations about this, and we've been liaising on a motion which reads as follows: that council turns on the floodlights at Algie Park, Birchgrove Oval, Blackmore Oval, Centenary Park, Cohen Park, Eastern Park, Henson Park, King George Park, Leichhardt Oval number 2, Marrickville Park, Petersham Oval, Pratton Park, Steele Park and Tempe Reserve from 4:30 p.m. every day, so that the parks have the same illumination that they would have if the sporting clubs were using the fields at this time of the year. This measure will continue for the length of the COVID-19 virus crisis or until the sporting clubs take over the responsibility in turning the lights on and off for evening games and training. So I will rule that that can be dealt with urgently, as obviously all of the issues related to the crisis are urgent, and this is a very fluid situation. I'll refrain from speaking to it further, but I'll go to Councillor. So I've ruled that it is urgent, so it can be tabled, and I'll go to Councillor Porteous as the seconder of the motion to speak to it.
Yeah, look, I'll only speak to it briefly. Thanks for that, Councillor Byrne. I think this is just a very good practical motion. It's obviously not looking at the wider issue of lights in parks in terms of additional lighting. These are lights that essentially are already there. They're normally on at this time of year. People are used to having them on when they go and do their evening exercise in the park. They can't, that obviously having them all turned off because the sporting clubs are not there is making it a lot more difficult for people to access the parks. And we want people to be getting out and being able to use the parks, and also to be able to not all having to go at one time of the day. And obviously for people that are working, it is very difficult as well to get to the parks during the week. So I hope councillors will see this as a practical motion, which will help our community to just feel a little bit more that we're trying to respond to their needs as much as we possibly can during this difficult period. Thanks.
I'm getting very forgetful as the meeting goes on. Councillor De Cruz.
Mr Mayor, may I speak?
I just had Councillor De Cruz first, Councillor, and then I'll come to you.
Thank you.
Could I just ask a question about the status of these grounds? Because I walked over to Petersham Park today and it was labelled closed. So have all the sporting grounds actually been closed, or why is that one closed?
I'll put that question to the Chief Executive.
Councillor, my understanding is that the system that's in place is that the parks are closed to sporting activity. They're generally open to the community, as is the normal case.
Okay, thank you for that. Petersham Park's had some separate issues, Councillor De Cruz, which you could follow up with the Chief Executive about, that are unrelated to the closure of the park, but are related to the infrastructure works we're undertaking there. Councillor Passos?
Excuse me, Mr Mayor.
Yes.
We just, through procedure, we just need to vote on the urgency first, and then councillors can talk and debate on the motion.
Okay, my understanding was that if it was ruled urgent, that was okay, but it needs to be voted on as well. Is that right?
That's
Mr.
right.
Naylor?
Two things need to happen: the ruling of urgent and the voting of the urgency.
Thank you. Yep, that's very helpful. So I've ruled that the matter is urgent, and I will move with Councillor Porteous that it be dealt with urgently. All those in favour, please raise your hands. In favour are Councillors Passos, Kiat, Macri, Hesse, Stamoulis, Drury, Steer, Rescind, McKenna, Porteous, Iskander, Lockie, I think I already said Councillor De Cruz, and myself. So that has been carried unanimously. Councillor Passos?
About that in the paper today. North Sydney Council's been doing that for a few days now. And Mr Mayor, we're at the end of the meeting. I would like to thank Ian and Catherine for giving me support with this computer and phone and everything else.
Good.
So I can participate in the meeting. I really do appreciate it. And you people are going to be very sorry if I start learning how to use all this stuff. Very sorry. Could I also ask you, Mr Mayor, when is the General Manager's review coming to Council?
Well, just hold on a moment, Councillor. I'm very happy to address that issue, but that's not relevant to the urgency motion that we're dealing with now. So if you don't have any comments on the motion itself, I'll come back to that at the conclusion of the meeting.
Okay.
Councillors, further discussion?
Mr Mayor,
Yes, Councillor Stamos.
are we going to issue a note? How are we going to issue a notice out to our public, letting them know this is occurring and what they can do at these times?
Well, that's an important question. I suppose we could let them know in the same way that we did about the council being dismissed through your Facebook page. But I'll put to the Chief Executive as to whether signage could be placed at these parks to notify people that the lights would be on. The other thing is that the lights themselves would certainly tell people that they were on.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. We'll organise that.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Stamos, did you have any further comments?
No, that's good. Thank you.
Okay, if there's no further comments, I'll refrain from making a right of reply. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? And I'll just go through again. I've got myself, Councillor Passis, Councillors Kiat. Councillor Macri, are you in support? Yes. Councillor Hesse, Councillor Stamoulis, Councillors Drury, Steer, Rescind, McKenna, Porteous, Iskander, Lockie and De Cruz. That has been carried unanimously. There are a number of items that have been held over which needed to be dealt with in Committee of the Whole, and I will commit to updating councillors in consultation with the Executive about how those matters can be dealt with at the next meeting or subsequent to that. With that, all of the business is dealt with, and I'll declare the meeting closed. Thanks very much. Have a great night.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Yeah.